Welcome to another episode of the Self-Storage Insight Podcast. I'm Ben Shirey, and today I'm joined by Dallas Thompson with Delta Asset Management. And Dallas, thank you so much for joining me on the podcast today.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Awesome, Dallas. If you don't mind to give the audience a little bit of your background on how you got started in self-storage and managing self-storage assets.
Yeah, so I started in late of 21. We acquired our first storage facility I acquired my first storage facility while I was in high school.
Wow, that's awesome.
It's expanded from there, so yeah.
Good deal. So you're only a few years out of high school, pretty young entrepreneur. And
yeah.
How many assets are you managing now?
Yeah, in the storage sector, we currently have 8 facilities.
8. Okay. And that started in 21, so you've got all 8 in the last 3 years or so?
Yeah, we've disposed of some of the assets. So the one we bought in 21, a couple that we bought within 22 and 23 have been sold now.
Okay.
So yeah.
Awesome.
So most of our, everything we own right now, has been bought in 23 and 24. So bringing a lot of facilities under contract and transitioning through a lot of facilities. And that was kind of what I wanted to talk to you a little bit about today, just to get your experience and hear kind of what you guys are doing when you acquire a facility. So I guess if you don't mind, if we start with this question of, whenever you get a facility under contract, what's maybe the first thing that you do to kind of set up a smooth transition between taking over a facility? So initially we have 2 regional managers. And what we initially do is we send out letters, put up new signage, and then we also try to do within the first week is have our managers call all the renters and just kind of introduce themselves, kind of bring a human aspect to it instead of just getting a letter or getting an email.
Yeah.
And then also something that we kind of do to try to minimize as much headache as possible is we try to get our closings timed so they're towards the middle of the month. So we're not going into the end of the month and initially having to collect rent. Say if we close on the 29th, it's really hard to get in communication with everyone. So that gives us time to kind of get in contact with everyone and say, hey, you got to pay through this system now. And
for sure. Yeah. And I mean, and that's actually a really good point that, somebody acquiring their first couple facilities might not think about is, you don't want to be closing on a facility and trying to collect rent the next day or caught in a mess of, transitioning the payments. And, that the payment stuff is always a pain, in terms of, switching over merchant accounts if they're processing through a software already. So there's always a lot of stuff that drags on with it. But yeah, that's a great point in terms of trying. Let me ask you this: whenever you're sending out that letter, do you guys always mail the letter, email the letter? Do you have a preference of which way you try to notify them?
So we typically do mail and email. I know a lot of mom and pops don't have any emails on file of the renters. So that's also what we're doing whenever we call them. We'll send out the initial letter through mail, and then we'll call the renters and say, hey, we're kind of modernizing this property, and we need your email and any updated contact information. And so that call gives us even though it's pretty time consuming, it gives us the ability to because a lot of these leases they haven't updated the renter information, so you're not always the actual letter gets to the renters. So it is something that you want to try to mitigate because there's been situations where we haven't been able to get a hold of someone for 6 months, and we finally get a hold of them and they're like, oh my gosh, I had this on an auto bill and we were still sending it to the previous owner. And you want to try to mitigate that all up front and kind of get it out of the way so you can start running
for sure. Have you had any properties where you had trouble getting a hold of a large percentage of the tenants, or is it usually just a handful here and there?
Typically, we have especially mom and pops that haven't ran it correctly. If they have a software in place, ESS or CC storage, it's really good because a lot of that information is up to date, but a lot of older operators, they just have everything on notepads and stuff and maybe did not record outdated information from like 20 years ago.
Right. And it seems like that's a lot of the facilities that are going to market too, is the ones that aren't being efficiently managed. And so you're going to deal with a lot of that kind of the hassle of tracking people down or overlocking units because you can't get a hold of somebody or something like that. Do you have a specific process in place in terms of putting a new lease into place with the tenants that are there? Do you try to get a new lease agreement signed, or do you keep in place what they already had and kind of let it alone?
Yeah, so I know a lot of people there, like I would say probably the majority of storage operators say, oh, just get a new lease agreement in place. But like, for instance, if we're buying one and we feel like if we're not going to hold on to it for very long and we know that their lease agreement is really solid currently, because like all lease agreements transfer to new ownership, we'll keep
Mhm.
it in place. But if we have like a long-term hold strategy, obviously we're going to try to get everyone to sign a new lease.
Okay.
So yeah,
So
I don't know if that was a
no, that's
confusing
good. Yeah, I
answer,
mean,
but yeah.
the deciding factor there being how long you're going to hold the asset for if you want to try to go through the hassle of getting new leases signed. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Because it is a hassle to get new leases signed, and like the renters are always like, why am I signing this lease? Or it's a lot of it's pretty time consuming to get new
Right.
leases signed.
Well, and too, for a lot of the people that I talk to as they're acquiring facilities, they ask about that sort of thing, like, what's standard practice? And there's a lot of different ways to handle it too. But yeah, I mean, if you're going in with a month to month lease and they're already on a month to month lease and you're just trying to get them to sign a new lease that's very similar in terms of the agreement or whatever. Yeah, sometimes
Yeah, like for
it's not worth
instance,
the headache.
yeah, like for instance, like some people have really solid leases out there. Like if I was buying a storage facility from Extra Space Storage, I might not need a new lease in place. But and then also to kind of add on to that, so whenever we send out the letters, we give them a notice of any like changes in like late fees, so on and so forth,
Mhm.
to kind of mitigate that. So if they ever come back and they're like, hey, yeah, well, my lease is $10 for a late fee and we charge 25 most of the time, we're like, well, there's a letter notifying you of
Mhm.
the change. So
Right.
yeah,
Yeah, that's usually all that you need to end up doing is send a letter for changes. What
yeah,
in terms of when you take over a facility, then how quick are you going in looking to increase rates or implement changes, add tenant insurance, that sort of thing?
yeah. Typically, day one. So like some of the softwares we use don't let us have tenant insurance, but some do. Do you guys offer it at
Yeah. Yeah. So with
okay, you
CC
do?
Storage,
Okay.
we're partnered with Safe Lease, and so
Okay.
you can offer tenant insurance through Safe Lease right now. Yeah.
Okay. But so typically yeah, we will send out a letter stating like, hey, we offer tenant insurance. We try to not make it mandatory always, especially if yeah, we don't always make it mandatory, and we've had situations where we have made it mandatory and we've had a lot of pushbacks. I know like a lot of people have shifted towards mandatory tenant insurance, but yeah, our biggest goal is pushing rent roll growth, and not we're not as worried about, like, obviously we're trying to admin fees, late fees, trying to get those up, but our primary objective when we're purchasing a property is rent roll growth, so we can drive value
Mhm.
in the asset a lot.
Yeah. With the tenant insurance or the implementation of that, does that also depend on if you're trying to unload the facility soon or how long you're planning to hold it, or does that not really play into that strategy?
Yeah, it does a little bit. So like, for instance, like, there's some value put on tenant insurance in place, and it's a pretty easy revenue item. Um, but I mean, like a lot of valuations are more based off rent roll, and so yeah,
Yeah,
that's kind of our perspective on
for sure. How do you handle a rebrand? So if you purchase a facility, how soon do you look to rebrand that facility, or do you typically keep the existing signage branding in place?
Yeah, so we used to not rebrand, and now we're shifting completely to Storage Depot. as our rebrand. There's a couple like off cases, like we have a boat and RV storage, and we figured Storage Depot was not a very good name for a boat and RV storage, so it's in St. Joseph, Missouri, and we called it St. Joe Boat and RV Storage. Um, and and then we have like another off case where we have this storage facility in Johnson City, Tennessee, that we retained the on-site manager and we put her in like a regional manager role, and we didn't really want um, that the tenants, because she was staying on, we didn't want the renters to know that we ownership had changed, so we just kept the name Creekside Mini Storage, um, and and yeah, it's worked out well. I don't think really many people noticed that there was a completely different
Right.
ownership.
So it's on a case by case basis. Typically, if there's value there and leaving it the same, you just kind of leave it sit.
Yep, exactly. So like, yeah, like whenever we're like 95% of the time we're just changing it to Storage Depot, and especially it makes answering our managers answering phone calls makes it a lot easier on them, that they don't have to try to figure out or look at the call center app to see which name they need to answer to.
Right, for sure. What so with your growth strategy, so you have facilities spread across the US, it seems like. Do you have a specific market that you're targeting, or you kind of just wherever you see a good deal pop up, or what are you looking for?
Yeah, so we're like it's funny because I think like because we're not big by any means, and we're pretty new compared to other people. It is funny that a lot of people are like, "Why do you buy so much across the U.S.?" Because we span from Kansas to New York, so like 8 facilities, all pretty spread out. But yeah, I think we're just very opportunistic. So like we don't want to get stuck into one market that there's not much transactions going on in that market. So like for instance, if I wanted to primarily target Tennessee, we might start overpaying on stuff because we only buy in that market. So yeah, we've really kind of expanded. We've gotten pretty good at boots on the ground, remote management, so no one has to see the property. And yeah, we don't like to constrain ourselves and put
Right.
ourselves in that
Uh,
position.
of the markets that you kind of got into there, is there one that you like, or that you'd be more interested in picking up another facility in versus others?
Yeah, we own. I don't like Kansas and Missouri, so we own a
Okay.
facility. I'm from Kansas, Kansas. So like the targets we really like the most are targets with no with minimal sophisticated operators, because we have a lot of like there's a lot of competition
Mhm.
from like in place customer rent increases. I don't know if you know much about that. Where like the big extra
Right.
space and stuff,
Yeah, like
they
what the REITs are
they
all doing. Yeah.
yeah, they advertise like $30 for a 10 by 10, and then it's actually $300. Not that drastic, but
Right. Oh
yeah.
no, they increase rates dramatically very quickly, and their move-in rates are significantly low, and you can't really compete with them online. Their budgets are a lot bigger than most of the operators that I talk to. So I mean, yeah, there's definitely a lot of challenges with being close to some of the REITs and the larger operators.
Yes, yeah, exactly. And I mean, because like I don't know how they don't get much pushback, because like we do some like move in discounts, but we really like we've had to start shifting towards some of the REIT strategies, because it's just like if they're advertising that and we can't lease up a facility, we kind of
Mhm.
gotta play their strategy too. And yeah, we've done it like on some of our properties, and we get so much pushback, and I don't know how they don't have like tons of
Well,
bad Google reviews.
yeah. Well, I mean, there was last year when I was doing a little bit of research on it, there were several news stations that put out articles about it. They interviewed several different people that were renting from CubeSmart or Extra Space. I don't remember which one it was, but there was a couple different like news clips about how drastic their rate changes were. And of course, they found somebody that needed a handicap accessible unit, and their rates had tripled over 12 months. And so there was some negative press coming out, but it's been kind of quiet for a while on it. I don't think with with the post COVID stuff, everything was kind of like you can't move out anyway. Everything was full. Occupancy was hard to get, and so they were able to do whatever they wanted. And then that's kind of when it started to. Now that there's occupancy available, I think they had to dial it back a little bit in terms of how dramatic their rate increases and stuff are,
Yeah.
just because of availability.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like, yeah, it's surprising that there's like not much negative.
Yeah.
Like, there is some, but there isn't as much as you expect. Like that big of a company
Right.
doing
Yeah.
insane
Yep.
rent increases. But yeah, I mean, like our number one. Yeah, so for instance, Kansas, and this is kind of plays into purchasing a storage facility. So Kansas has like really high property taxes
Mhm.
and decently high insurance rates, like really pretty high compared to the rest of the nation, especially like the South and the East.
Yeah.
Um, so that's why we don't like Kansas. You're not going to get your we don't know we've exited a lot of deals in Kansas and came out really good on them, but like it's a little harder to stomach like, hey, in Kansas recess is on sale price. So like I could go buy a storage facility that is assessed at 200,000. I purchased it for 800,000. Well, it's paying 8,000 in taxes at 200,000, and now Kansas is going to reassess me to like
Mhm.
30. And
Right.
and when you're purchasing like that, that really drops your NOI. So that's why
For
we
sure.
like to stay away from like high property tax markets. We really like Tennessee, and the only problem with Tennessee is there's a lot of big operators, and we are having to play those rate
Yeah.
games. So yeah, I guess in every market you're kind of
Different
you're
challenges.
different challenges. Yeah, we moved to New York, and property taxes are high, but they're we New York, upstate New York, and we really liked how we turned out on that market we're in there. So yeah.
Yeah. The North Carolina facility that you purchased, I believe that's where it was that you had purchased from just recently.
Yep, yeah.
Was that one good with all the hurricane activity and stuff, or did you guys get hit with any damage? I was just curious. I hadn't had a
Yeah,
chance to talk
yeah,
to you.
no, we've been just fine there, and yeah, that one's turned out well. Surprisingly, like the biggest challenge there is we can't get a sign company out there to replace signage, which you
Oh,
would
okay.
think is crazy. We've ran through like six, and none of
Yeah.
them end up actually replacing it. So I don't know what the deal is there. I might have to drive down there one day and put a sign up. So
Just do it yourself, huh?
yeah,
It is crazy. It's getting harder to find like fence companies as well to do installs. I know in our area there's less and less fence companies that are available to install fences and gates. And so yeah, I'll be curious to see how all of that stuff plays out
yeah,
over the
no,
long run.
seriously, like it used to be a lot easier, and like just to get a sign, like it's just like how would it take them 2 months to put up a sign?
Hmm.
It's ridiculous to me, but
Yeah. Does that affect your move-ins and stuff as far as if you're changing the name of the facility? So online it shows up as Storage Depot, but at the location when they show up, it shows, I don't remember what it was, but yeah.
yeah, it's like our movements have been fine since it's a small market, and there's like actually no Google business pages in that market, so we've
Okay.
like had people reaching out to us for that. But yeah, we the not having signage up hurts us because to do a Google business page verification, you have to have signage up.
Okay.
So we can't do a Google business page verification yet, and get that storage Google business page up online. Which, crossing our fingers, we should have signage up there this week. But yeah,
Yeah. So I guess kind of to wrap that all up, what advice would you give to somebody that's purchasing their first storage facility of maybe some common things that you've ran into that you know how to do better on since you've purchased multiple facilities?
yeah. So like looking back to myself, whenever like I was purchasing my first couple, is like, and luckily the owners never did anything, and weren't coming at it with like negative intent or anything. So like don't always trust what like they're giving you information wise. Like for instance, we just purchased a storage facility in Joplin, Missouri, last week, and we had tax returns, rent rolls, lease agreements, all that in place. And then we get in there, and the tax returns matched up to the rent roll, and we get in there day one, and it turned out that the owner had auctioned off 15% of the units day one. And like stuff like that isn't avoidable because he gave us a fake delinquency report. So yeah, I would just like kind of dive into the facility and verify everything that an owner's giving you, because I know like my first couple of deals, and luckily nothing happened and we were completely fine on them. But like we didn't even have a tax return, which you don't always need a tax return, but we just had a rent roll that the seller gave us, and like you can completely lie on a rent roll in a delinquency report.
Right.
So yeah, I would just push towards like make sure you actually are being told what you're buying, and then also like know your market, like kind of research other storage facilities, like if they're mom and pops, maybe you could push rates above them. And then if you're operating with a bunch of sophisticated operators, be prepared that you're going to have to do a lot of marketing. And then also, I would say if you research the states like guidelines on property tax reassessments. So like for instance, like Missouri, they don't reassess on sale price because the county assessor can't even see the sales price. But like Kansas has high property taxes, and the county assessor can see the sales price and they reassess the sales price. So yeah, I would just say, research property taxes in that market you're purchasing, and don't go in blind.
Right. No, yeah, great things to think about. When you go into a new market, do you do like a market? Do you do any research on the market? How much research do you do? Like, how do you use a company to research the facilities around where you're looking to purchase, or do you drop it on Google and look at the facilities around online, or what's your approach there?
Yeah, so like for instance, if we don't hire any companies to do like research, obviously we're going to call everyone in that market and see what their rates are at, and then kind of see where we would land in that. Like, so if there's like 5 facilities that have like no internet presence and just have a sign, you could probably assume you're going to get rates higher than them, especially if you're the only facility with a Google business page. And then also, so like if you're kind of a little like hack we do whenever we're trying to get like square foot per capita is like you can find population numbers in that market. And then what we do is we'll go in there in Google Maps and measure out each building in that market. And then that can get us a square foot for each storage facility, and then you can get to your square foot per capita. That's not like the best way to do it, but if you don't want to spend $3,000 on a report, I would say that's probably going to be your most, and it might be even more accurate than those reports. So
yeah. For somebody just looking to get into it, maybe they don't want to put the money down up front. Yeah, that's an interesting approach. I had not heard that one yet.
Yeah,
of mapping it all out. Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah, because I mean, like full due diligence information can kind of cost a lot, especially if you have to get like a phase 1 and a phase 2. So to do ways to minimize your acquisition costs is always good. So
awesome. Yeah. Well, Dallas, thank you so much for taking some time out to join me on the podcast today and sharing some of the things that you've learned. I mean, it's been awesome to talk to you. Is there any closing thoughts that you have? Anything that we didn't get to cover that you wanted to talk about?
No, not that I can think of. Yeah, just go out there and buy storage facilities.
Awesome. If anybody has any questions or they wanted to connect with you, is there a good way to get in contact with you?
Yeah, so you can reach out to me through my email. I don't know if you can tag it.
I can put it in the show notes there. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Perfect. Yeah. So yeah, if anyone ever has any questions or anything, I'd be more than happy to answer them.
Awesome, man. Yeah, it's awesome to see younger people getting into the industry, investing, and wish you the best of success as you move forward.
Yeah, thank you. Have a good day.
Awesome, man. Thank you for tuning in to another episode of the Self Storage Insight Podcast. We hope you enjoyed this episode. Just a quick reminder, this episode was brought to you by CC Storage. CC Storage is a no-cost property management software that allows you to pass the fees for credit card processing on to your tenants, freeing up some CapEx space for your business and helping you more efficiently run your storage facility. If you'd like to learn more about CC Storage, click the link in the description below, and we hope to see you again for our next episode.